On the night of the 26th of December 1980, something descended into Rendlesham Forest in Suffolk, England. It was seen by multiple witnesses. They were not ordinary witnesses. They were United States Air Force personnel, trained military observers stationed at a NATO base, and what they reported has never been officially explained. Rendlesham Forest sits between two NATO air bases. RAF Bentwaters and RAF Woodbridge were operated by the United States Air Force during the Cold War. Hundreds of American military personnel were stationed there. December the 26th was a quiet night after Christmas. The base was running a normal security rotation. At approximately 3 in the morning, security personnel saw bright lights descending into the trees. They assumed it was an aircraft in distress. 2 airmen were sent to investigate. Their names were John Burroughs and Jim Peniston. They entered the forest on foot. What they found was not a crashed aircraft. Peniston later described a triangular craft, approximately 9 feet across, 6 feet tall, sitting in a clearing in the trees. The surface appeared to be smooth black metal. It had no visible seams or joins. It was warm to the touch. Peniston reached out and placed his hand on it. He said it felt unlike any material he had ever touched. He noticed symbols on the surface. He took out his notebook. He sketched the symbols by hand. That notebook still exists today. The object then rose silently above the trees. It moved through the forest at a speed no aircraft of 1980 could achieve, and then it was gone. Peniston and Burroughs returned to the base. They filed a report. The report was taken seriously. 2 nights later, the incident continued. Lieutenant Colonel Charles Holt was the deputy base commander. He led a group of officers back into the forest. He brought a tape recorder. He recorded everything in real time as it happened. That recording still exists. You can listen to it today. On the tape, you can hear Holt describing lights moving through the trees. You can hear him reporting an object dripping something from beneath it. You can hear the voices of trained military personnel reacting to something they cannot identify. Holt sounds calm. He is a military officer, but in the recording, there is a moment where his voice changes, where something is clearly directly above them, and he cannot explain what it is. The following morning, a physical investigation of the landing site was conducted. 3 indentations were found in the ground where the object had rested. They formed a perfect triangle. Each indentation was exactly 7 inches deep. Radiation readings were taken. The levels at the landing site were significantly elevated above background radiation, specifically at the 3 indentation points. The surrounding forest showed elevated readings that decreased as the distance from the landing site increased. This is consistent with a concentrated source of radiation at the point of the indentations. Trees at the landing site showed damage on their sides facing the clearing. The damage was later found to contain elevated radiation. Lieutenant Colonel Holt wrote a memo to the Ministry of Defense. It described the incident in precise military language. It listed the physical evidence. It was classified. It was declassified in 1983 under the Freedom of Information Act. The memo is now public. You can read it online. The Ministry of Defense responded to the memo. Their official position was that the Rendlesham Forest incident was of no defense significance. They said no further investigation was required. That was their complete official response. No defense significance. For an incident reported by a NATO-based deputy commander, with physical evidence, with an audio recording, with multiple military witnesses. John Burroughs spent years trying to get answers. He developed serious heart problems. He believed his condition was related to his exposure in Rendlesham Forest. For years, his medical records from that period were classified. He could not access his own medical files. In 2015, after a long legal battle, the United States Department of Veterans Affairs paid for his heart surgery. They acknowledged his service-connected injuries. They did not officially state what caused them, but they paid. And the records remained classified. Jim Penniston has never changed his account. He has been interviewed hundreds of times. He has never altered a single detail of what he reported that night. The notebook with the symbols is in his possession. The symbols have been analyzed. No one has conclusively identified what they are. Charles Holt retired as a lieutenant colonel. He has continued to speak about Rendlesham publicly. He has signed a formal affidavit. In it, he states that what he witnessed in Rendlesham Forest was not from this world. He states that both the United States and British governments know more than they have disclosed. A retired lieutenant colonel of the United States Air Force has signed his name to that statement. I have thought about this story for a long time, and I have come to three possible conclusions. First conclusion: the Rendlesham Forest Incident was a genuine encounter with an unknown aerial phenomenon. The witnesses are credible, the physical evidence is documented, the audio recording exists, the radiation readings are on record. No conventional explanation has ever been formally confirmed. Second conclusion: what the airmen encountered was a classified military technology, either American or Soviet. The Cold War produced extraordinary technology that was never publicly disclosed. A secret test of an experimental craft flown over a NATO base to observe the security response would explain the sighting without requiring an extraordinary cause. It would also explain why both governments refused to investigate publicly. If it was yours, you do not investigate it. If it was theirs, you do not admit it landed on your base. Third conclusion: the witnesses genuinely saw something that cannot be fully categorized, not necessarily extraterrestrial, not necessarily military, something that exists in the gap between what we know and what we admit we do not know. I do not know which conclusion is correct. Perhaps the truth is different for each piece of the evidence. But here is what I do know. Somewhere in Suffolk, there is a forest, and in that forest, there is a clearing. And in that clearing, in the soil, there are 3 triangular indentations, faint now after 40 years, but still there. That is the story of Rendlesham Forest, a story about what military men saw, what governments denied, and what the tape recorded that night in the trees. What do you think it was? Leave your answer in the comments. Subscribe to VeilStory. Every week we lift the veil on the stories that were never meant to be explained. See you in the next video.